There is a pain that has no name. Everyone has felt it at some point. You send a message and you wait. Minutes pass, then hours. You check your phone again, not because you expect a reply, but because some part of you is still hoping. They have seen it. You know they have, and still, nothing comes back. No response, no reaction, just silence. And somehow that silence feels louder than anything they could have ever said to you. It sits in your chest like something heavy. It follows you into every room you walk into. It is there when you wake up, and it is still there when you try to sleep. A single person choosing not to respond has the power to unravel your entire day. And the worst part is you cannot even explain to anyone why it hurts this much. You try to tell yourself it is nothing. You try to move on and stay busy and act like everything is fine. But something keeps pulling you back to that unanswered message, that unacknowledged moment, that wall of silence that should not have the power it does, but somehow has all of it. What most people do not realize is that being ignored is not just emotional. Your brain does not register silence the way it registers small frustrations. It registers it like a threat. Scientists have found that social rejection and physical pain fire in the same part of the brain. So when you say it hurts, you are not exaggerating. You are describing something real happening inside your head right now. The same system that tells you something is physically wrong with your body is the same system firing when someone you care about decides you are not worth a response. Your brain genuinely cannot separate those two experiences. It processes both as damage, it processes both as danger, and it responds to both with the same intensity, the same alarm, and the same desperate urge to make the pain stop as quickly as possible. The reason goes back thousands of years. Human beings evolved as deeply social creatures who depended entirely on their group for survival. In the ancient world, being excluded from your tribe was not uncomfortable, it was fatal. You could not hunt alone, protect yourself alone, or survive alone. Connection was not a preference, it was oxygen. So the brain built an alarm system that fires the moment social connection feels threatened. That alarm is still running inside every one of us today, and it cannot tell the difference between being cast out of a prehistoric tribe and being ignored by someone on your contact list. It treats both with the same urgency, the same stress hormones, and the same flood of distress. The world around us has changed completely. The brain responding to that silence has not moved an inch. It is still doing the same job it was doing hundreds of thousands of years ago, protecting you from the one thing it was taught to fear more than almost anything else, which is being left behind by the people you belong to. When no explanation ever comes, your mind begins doing something psychologists call rumination. You replay every recent conversation, every message, every interaction, searching for the moment it went wrong. Maybe you said something that landed differently than you intended. Maybe you were too much and they finally noticed. Maybe they were never as invested in you as you thought. Maybe there is a version of you that keeps pushing people away, and you have never been able to see it clearly enough to fix it. The brain, trying to protect you from future pain, fills in every blank with the worst possible explanation it can find. It does this not to hurt you, but to prepare you. But without real information to work with, it builds on nothing but fear. And because the mind believes what it repeats to itself long enough, those worst-case explanations slowly stop feeling like guesses. They start feeling like facts. They start feeling like conclusions you have finally been brave enough to arrive at. Even when they are nothing more than anxiety wearing the costume of logic, dressed up so convincingly that you cannot tell the difference anymore. What makes silence more damaging than open conflict is that it gives you nothing to respond to. When someone is angry, there is a conversation to be had. When someone says they are hurt, there is something to work with. You can apologize, explain yourself, ask questions, and find your way towards some kind of resolution. But silence offers no target, no explanation, and no path forward. Your nervous system stays locked in a state of alert, waiting for a signal that never arrives. Cortisol stays elevated for hours at a time. Sleep becomes shallow and broken. Your ability to focus on work or other people or anything outside of this one situation shrinks, because your brain keeps pulling its attention back to the unresolved threat sitting in your pocket. Every time your phone lights up, your heart jumps. Every time it is not them, something sinks a little further. You are running on a loop with no exit, burning energy on something you cannot resolve. And the longer that silence stretches, the more exhausting and consuming that loop becomes. There is something researchers call the need to belong, and it sits right alongside hunger and thirst in terms of how powerfully it drives human behavior. It is not a luxury. It is not a personality trait that some people have more than others. It is a fundamental human requirement, as basic and as non-negotiable as food and water and rest. When that need goes unmet, even briefly, even by just one person, the effects spread into every part of life. Studies have shown that people experiencing social exclusion show reduced activity in the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation. This means being ignored does not just hurt your feelings. It temporarily makes it harder to think clearly, harder to stay calm, and harder to see the situation for what it actually is. You are trying to make sense of something painful, using a brain that the pain itself has already begun to cloud. The very tool you are relying on to figure out what is happening has been compromised by the experience you are trying to understand. That is why the spiral feels so impossible to stop once it starts. That is why talking yourself out of it rarely works the way you want it to. The most important thing to understand is what this pain actually says about you. Its intensity is not weakness. It is not proof that you are too sensitive or too attached or too dependent on other people. It is not evidence that you need to toughen up or care less or build higher walls around yourself. It is proof that you are wired exactly like every other human being who has ever lived and breathed and loved on this planet. Needing acknowledgement, needing basic communication, needing to feel seen by the people in your life, none of that is a flaw. None of that is something to be ashamed of or to quietly work on eliminating from yourself. It is biology doing exactly what it was designed to do, keeping you connected, keeping you safe, keeping you reaching toward the people who matter to you even when reaching hurts. The person on the other end of that silence, whether they are using it intentionally as a form of control or simply avoiding a difficult conversation out of their own fear, is triggering one of the deepest and most ancient fears the human brain carries. That is not something you should be able to simply shake off with enough willpower or self-discipline. Understanding what is happening inside you when you feel that weight does not make the silence disappear. But it changes what the silence means. It means your brain is working exactly as it was built to work. It does not mean something is broken in you. It does not mean you are too much or not enough or fundamentally difficult to be around. It means you are human, completely and entirely human. And that has never once been something to apologize for.